hard.
I knew them up in here.
Daily was what we go through here. And I knew that it could get a little bit crazy.
Robbie is back. But what if that's the worst thing that could happen to him? That's the question nobody wants to ask out loud, but it's the one hanging over every second of this new trailer for The Pit Season 3. Everyone's celebrating his return like it's some kind of victory lap. The staff, the fans, even the marketing team pushing this trailer everywhere, they're all treating this like a happy ending. But is it? Or is Robbie walking straight back into the exact situation that broke him the first time? Because here's the thing nobody's saying clearly enough. Robbie didn't leave because he wanted a vacation. He left because something inside him cracked. And now, after everything, he's just supposed to put the badge back on and pretend the cracks were never there. That's not a comeback story. That's a countdown. The trailer wants you to feel relief. Robbie's name is back on the schedule. His co-workers are teasing him, joking around, acting like nothing ever happened. But that's exactly what should make you nervous. Because when people act like nothing happened, it usually means everyone's too scared to say what actually happened. Nobody in that ER is asking Robbie the real question. Nobody is asking him if he's actually okay. They're just handing him a shift and hoping for the best. And that's the trap. Because Robbie is the kind of person who will smile, nod, and walk straight into danger if it means proving he's fine. He's done it before. That's exactly the pattern that pushed him to the edge in the first place. So when the show frames this as him finally being back, you have to ask yourself, back to what? Back to healing? Or back to the exact same cycle that almost destroyed him? Think about what we actually know. Robbie is stepping into the same building, the same chaos, the same impossible choices that broke him down before. Nothing about the ER has changed. Patients are still going to crash. Emergencies are still going to pile up. The pressure is still going to be relentless, second after second, hour after hour. The only thing that's different is Robbie himself. And that's exactly what makes this so dangerous. Because if the environment hasn't changed, and the person walking back into it hasn't fully healed, what exactly is supposed to be different this time? This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because the show doesn't give us a triumphant hero moment. It gives us hesitation. It gives us a man who admits, almost quietly, that he already knows this is going to be hard. Not might be hard. Not could be hard. Is going to be hard. That's not confidence. That's someone bracing for impact before the impact even happens. And that should worry you more than any dramatic music cue or intense flash cut in the trailer. Because when someone already expects to struggle before their first shift even starts, that tells you everything about how fragile this return really is. So why is everyone around him acting so casual? Why is nobody stopping to check if he's actually ready? Maybe because they can't afford to. Maybe the ER doesn't have the luxury of slowing down for anyone's emotional recovery, not even someone as important as Robbie. The moment he steps through those doors, the machine keeps running. Patients don't wait for staff to heal. Emergencies don't pause for anyone's comeback arc. And that brutal, non-stop rhythm might be exactly what swallows Robbie whole again. Here's another angle nobody's talking about. What if Robbie's return isn't really about Robbie at all? What if it's about what everyone else needs from him? Think about it. The moment he's back, people are going to expect him to be the calm one. The reliable one. The person who steps into the worst cases without blinking. That's who Robbie has always been to them. But is that fair? Is it fair to expect someone who just went through something devastating to instantly become the strongest person in the room again? Because if the team leans on him the way they used to, without giving him space to actually process what happened, that's not a healthy return. That's a setup. And the scariest part is, Robbie might let them do it. He might convince himself that being needed is the same thing as being okay. That's the real tension buried underneath this trailer. Not whether Robbie can save a patient. We already know he can. The real question is whether he can save himself while doing it. Can he set boundaries? Can he say no when it's too much? Or is he going to fall right back into the same trap of believing that his worth is measured by how much pain he can absorb for everyone else? And if that's true, then this isn't really a comeback story at all. It might be the beginning of a countdown to something much worse. So Robbie says thank you. He accepts the welcome. He steps back into the chaos like nothing ever happened. But what if that thank you isn't gratitude? What if it's a mask? What if Robbie is already breaking on the inside, and nobody around him is paying close enough attention to notice until it's too late? What happens when the person everyone depends on is the one person nobody's actually watching? That's the real danger sitting underneath episode 1, and it's easy to miss it if you're only paying attention to the medical drama on the surface. Because the moment Robbie steps back into that ER, something shifts. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. The team doesn't ease him back in. They don't give him the small cases first, the simple ones, the ones that let him find his footing again. No. They hand him the hardest situations almost immediately, because that's what they've always done with Robbie. That's who he's always been to them. The one who handles the worst of it so everyone else doesn't have to. But should that be happening on his very first day back? Shouldn't someone be checking in? Shouldn't someone be asking if he's actually ready for that kind of pressure? Or are they just assuming he is because that's easier for them? This is where the trailer gets genuinely unsettling if you look past the jokes and the teasing. Because underneath all that familiar banter, there's a pattern quietly repeating itself. Robbie throws himself into the chaos. The team relies on him more. The pressure builds. And nobody stops to ask whether this is sustainable, because in the moment, it works. It always works, right up until it doesn't. And that's exactly what makes this so tense to watch. Because we've seen this cycle before. We know where it leads. So when Robbie says he knew his first day back was going to be hard, that's not just a throwaway line. That's a warning. He's telling us, before anything even happens, that he already expects to struggle. Doesn't that raise a bigger question? If he already knows it's going to be hard, why is nobody in that hospital treating it that way? Maybe because acknowledging it would mean slowing down. And in an ER like this one, slowing down isn't really an option. The department doesn't pause for anyone's healing process. Patients don't stop arriving because one doctor needs time to adjust. The moment Robbie clocks in, the machine starts moving again, and it doesn't care how fragile he might still be underneath that calm exterior. So here's the uncomfortable truth the trailer seems to be circling without saying directly. Robbie's biggest test in episode 1 isn't a medical case. It's not some impossible diagnosis, or a life or death surgery. His biggest test is whether he can survive being needed by everyone around him without losing himself in the process again. Think about what that actually means. Every time a patient crashes, every time someone looks at him expecting an answer, every time the team assumes he'll step up without hesitation, that's another small piece of pressure stacking on top of everything he's already carrying. And pressure like that doesn't announce itself all at once. It builds slowly, quietly, the same way it did before. By the time anyone notices something's wrong, it might already be too late. And that's exactly why this trailer feels so different from a typical hero's return. There's no triumphant music behind Robbie stepping through those doors like he's some kind of savior. Instead, there's tension. There's hesitation. There's a version of Robbie who seems almost scared of his own instincts, because he knows exactly where those instincts led him before. So ask yourself this. What happens the first time Robbie is forced to make an impossible call? What happens when a patient's life is hanging in the balance and there's no time to think, only to act? Will he freeze? Will old instincts take over completely? Or will something in him finally break under the weight of expectations that never actually eased up, no matter how long he was gone? Because here's the part that should really concern you. Nobody around Robbie seems prepared for the possibility that he might not be okay. They are prepared for him to save lives. They are prepared for him to make the hard calls. But are they prepared to catch him if he falls apart in the middle of doing it? That question becomes even more important when you think about what welcome back actually means in this context. It's not just a greeting. It's an expectation. The hospital isn't just welcoming Robbie back as a person. They are welcoming back a role. A function. A version of him they need in order for that ER to keep running the way it always has. And that's a heavier weight than any of them probably realize. So when Robbie answers with a simple thank you, is that really gratitude? Or is that the sound of someone accepting a burden he's not entirely sure he can carry again? And if the show is building toward a moment where all of this finally catches up to him, where does that leave us? Because if Robbie cracks under this pressure the same way he did before, this isn't just a comeback story anymore. It's the beginning of something far more dangerous. So the real question isn't whether Robbie can survive his first shift back. It's whether anyone around him will notice before it's too late.